Well, today on the webinar, we are going to be talking all about how to attract your ideal client and deciding to specialize. For me, finding my ideal client, it took a while. For the longest time, I do individual couples and family counseling, and I got no traction in my private practice. And now that we have a clear specialization and a clear offering, we have 5 clinicians now that work for mental wellness counseling. We're entirely private pay. We don't take any insurance, and we stay full. As a practice, we just continue to grow. So what you want to start with when we're looking at filling up your ideal practice with your ideal client is your background and your expertise. So start with, are you brand new? Are you out of grad school? Are you focused on that side of your career? Or have you been in private practice for 20 or 30 years? Because it's really important to understand kind of what your background is and know your expertise. So on this webinar, we're going to look at exactly how do you find your ideal client, and then secondly, how do you fill up your ideal practice. And starting with your background and expertise is really important. So if you are at the beginning of your career, you want to look at, okay, so maybe I have had access to the best research. I've been connected to some of the best training at the institution I went to. I really dove into my thesis, and so there's a certain specialty area I know inside and out. Or maybe you've been in practice for a long time and you're really well known in your community and you do a great job and you're connected. But we also want to look at, well, what are the things that need to grow? Is my website 15 years old? Well, I might need to update that a little bit. Next, we want to look at what clients give you energy, but then also what things give you energy. So starting with what clients. So think about your clients. There's certain types of clients that give us more energy than others. I remember when I worked on this sailing program that I had started, and we took kids out sailing that were from the foster care community, probation, a variety of different things. And I started having these weird, like, not night terrors, but I was like sleepwalking, but like sleep doing things. And it was because I was so stressed out and there was so much responsibility on my shoulders for this job, but I loved it. Like, I got paid to sail and do therapy on a sailboat. And this one night, I remember I woke up. We have this kind of sunroom off of our bedroom that kind of just goes off to, it's like a dead end. And so I go out there and I am dreaming that the boat has run aground, but I'm like kind of like I'm kind of swaying back and forth, like left and right. And my wife is like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "We've run aground." She's like, "Come back to bed." Like, what is happening? And so there are times that our energy just gets sucked. And for some people, that's through networking. For some people, that's sitting down and blogging for an hour. For some people, that's certain types of clients. And so we really want to identify what types of things give you energy. Can those things be outsourced or given to somebody else or just be removed? Which of those things are necessary? When you're focusing on building your ideal practice, you're really in that like bootstrapping and growth phase. And so a lot of it, you end up doing everything. But long term, we want to think about, how do we scale this? How do we bring in some virtual assistants eventually to answer phones, answer email, do that basic intake over the phone to get people in? Next, we want to look at, when clients come in, what is the pain that they come in with? So for example, as a counselor, I might help parents that are dealing with the pain of getting too many phone calls from the principal. That the principal calls like every week, and the parents, they want a plan. They want to know exactly what it is that they need to do to get the principal to stop calling to improve their son or daughter's behavior at school. So if you can identify the pain that your client is dealing with, and we're going to go through an exercise in a second to focus on your ideal client, that really helps you quickly connect with them online. When people say, "I do individual counseling," or even kind of less clear, "We do a relaxation-based approach," or I just saw a website recently that it could have just as easily been a massage therapist or a like herbal medicine company as it could be counseling, because they had nothing about counseling on their homepage. It was beautiful pictures of stones in a pile next to a river, which is fine, it's beautiful, but it doesn't connect with what your client is trying to figure out. And that's, am I in the right place? And so let's do an exercise where we sketch out your ideal client. I want you to get a piece of paper. If you need to pause this webinar, pause it and come back. But we're going to talk about finding your ideal client. But before we do that, I want you to know that there are some things that are very natural pushbacks in regards to specializing. And more times than not, it's people in medium and small towns that have this pushback than people that are in, say, a larger town like New York or LA. They understand the need to specialize in a really competitive market. But people in a medium-sized town like Traverse City, so we have like 40,000 people kind of right in the city limits, about 100,000 people within the 5-county area. So it's not a huge area, not a huge population. People will often say, should I really specialize? I mean, people aren't going to come see me if all I treat is eating disorders. So a couple things. So first, imagine you went to a French restaurant, this well-known fancy French restaurant, and your father-in-law comes with you, and say your father-in-law is like a meat and potatoes kind of guy. And he comes in with you and he's like, I just want a burger. Now, if you say to your waiter or waitress, my father-in-law here, he really wants a burger. I'm sorry. I know you guys are a fancy French restaurant. If they made a burger, it would probably be a delicious burger. Now, imagine you go to a mom and pop diner and you say to the waitress, I'm really in the mood for some French food. Like, that would be incredible. Can you whip some up? The French food you're going to get at that mom and pop diner is probably not going to be that good. See, we assume that a specialist, a brain surgeon, for example, that she is going to be able to quickly look at the rash on my arm, which I don't have a rash on my arm, but if I did, to say, yeah, you should probably see a dermatologist, or no, just like that's going to probably go away. Whereas if I went to my primary care doctor and said, hey, can you help me with brain surgery? Probably not that great of an idea. So we assume that specialists can be generalists, but we never assume that generalists can become specialists. Now, in a competitive market, that's fine. If you're in a large city, yeah, zoom in, super zoom in, hyper niche. But in a smaller town or a medium-sized town, you may want to look at what are the themes you help. So for example, you may say, I help people get unstuck, or I help women get unstuck. And then you drill into that. So if someone is dating and just can't find the person that they want to date, maybe you help people through counseling through that. Or if they're married or have a long-term partnership, you help people decide if they're going to stay in that, or if they're going to work on it, or if they recently got divorced and they're stuck, or maybe they have decided they don't want to get married, and you help them get stuck out of, kind of beating themselves up over that. Whatever it is, maybe it's you help people get unstuck, a more broad term that then you kind of drill into. So for example, we say at Mental Wellness Counseling, we help angry kids, frustrated parents, and distant couples. And for a long time, that was our only focus, but now we've added to create a plan for happiness. So that's the outcome side. Because we know everyone wants happiness, everyone wants to have a clear plan, they want a guide, they want an Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so the more that I can be that guide, that my therapist can be that guide to come up with a plan and really identify that pain. So angry kids. So if you work with angry kids, you probably work with depressed kids and anxious kids and frustrated kids and kids that are failing to go to college and are still staying at home and entitled. If you deal with frustrated parents, you probably also deal with frustrated grandparents and frustrated step-parents. So people then make generalizations well beyond just our specialty areas. But it does help us stand out a little bit because we don't sound as clinical as other places and we're more approachable. So now that we've kind of walked through that, let's go back to that piece of paper. I want you to actually name your ideal client. Bob, Jane, Letitia, Juan, like whatever the ideal person is that you're trying to attract to your client, I want you to give them an actual name. And I want you to give them an actual age as well. Not 20 to 40, but if you want to help young adults that are transitioning into adulthood, 23, 24. If you want to help young couples, 27 and 28. If you want to help people that are empty nesters, maybe 59. So give an actual age, because then when you are writing blog posts, when you're speaking on the radio, when you are writing a newspaper article for your local paper, it's going to be so much easier if you have someone to think of. If you can think about Bob and Jane and their marriage and how it's falling apart versus just any client, it's going to be more personal. You're going to have more animation. In the same way that I'm thinking about people that don't have their ideal clients and they haven't filled up their ideal practice, I have in my head the kind of people that I know are going to love this webinar. So I can speak directly to you despite being here physically alone in my office. I can have animation as if I'm directly talking to you. Okay, now next, so you've got their name, you've got their gender identity, you've got their age. Now we want to look at where do they hang out? What do they do? So do they go to church on Sunday? Do they go to yoga on Sunday? Do they sit at home? What do they do in the evenings, on the weekends? Where are they connected at work? Do they work at a law firm? Are they the mayor of the town? Where is it that they work? And from there, who are they connected to? So if they were to vent to someone, who would they vent to? Would they vent to their pastor? Would they vent to their girlfriend? Would they vent to their golf buddies? Would they feel really isolated? And so maybe we need to do kind of some connection with people online. So the more that you can understand how they would vent and what they would say, and observe what people are saying when they vent to you, the easier it's going to be to create copy around that ideal client. So start to observe that. When you're out to eat and you hear a couple behind you that's lamenting about their kids, oh, I could use that in some of my copy. I mean, you don't want to be all stalker and stuff, but it really, like, you can observe and be inspired everywhere. If you're at a potluck and people are talking about how frustrating it is to have a 2-year-old that won't sleep, what kind of words do they use? If they're your ideal client, really listen and really investigate as if you're a journalist. And the more that you can capture the way that people vent to each other, the easier it's going to be to market to your ideal client to fill up your ideal practice. Next, we want to look at optimizing your website. If you're doing online counseling, you're going to want to look at for your own state, and if you're licensed in other states, you may even want to optimize for other states and even other countries. You want to make sure you look at all sorts of rules if you're doing online counseling outside of your own state. But a few things around website optimization. We want to look at optimizing your website so that it can rank in Google. That's really the main thing, that people will find you, they'll find connection there, and that you'll rank in Google. Probably the best plugin that I've found for this, it's called Yoast, Y-O-A-S-T, Yoast, like toast, only with a Y, and it's their SEO plugin. So at the bottom of every blog post and page, you can enter a keyword. So say it's depression counseling, and it will give you a rank of red, yellow, or green as to whether or not you are probably going to rank for that, based on the copy that you've written within your blog post or your page. So it's going to look at your title, it's going to look at your meta description. Your meta description is that thing that pops up if somebody Googles something that like 2 to 3 sentences. They're going to look at all sorts of different things in regards to the copy. They're going to look at your header 1s, header 2s, your bullet points, the things you bold, the links, how well you write it. They'll say, does your writing need improvement? And they'll tell you what you need to improve. So shorter sentences, don't start sentences with the same word over and over. And so they look at all these different factors that Google has figured out, or that Google does, and they've figured out what Google wants. And then you can write to that. And it's really important so that you can rank in Google, because that's the main search engine. Most of the traffic goes to number 1 and number 2, and you want to be that number 1 and number 2. Next, we want to think about if your clients are venting, what are they looking for when they're online? So you want to blog to that pain. And so you might create a parent's guide to eating disorders, a grandparent's guide to eating disorders, a principal's guide to eating disorders. So all the people that are connected to that child, like spokes off of a bicycle tire, create content that's going to help them. Create infographics that you can put on Pinterest, that you can have downloaded on your website, have images that you can use on Facebook, do Facebook Lives about those blogs. We'll talk about why you really should be doing that more. And blog to that pain so that you can be answering those questions. When you're first starting out, really, if you want to rank in Google quickly, you want to sketch out kind of all the search terms that you want to rank for. So it could be depression counseling, anxiety counseling, it could be parenting issues, whatever they are, and then create one blog post for each of those. And then you want to start linking those blog posts to each other. And so if you have one that's about depression and you mention anxiety, you want to link that anxiety to that anxiety post. So maybe you write your 9 blog posts first, you have them all go live at once or so, then go back through and link them all together to each other so that they can start all ranking for those search terms that you want to rank for. As well, you're going to want to do some promotion of those blog posts to get people on your website so that they can be, converting to become your people at your client or at your practice. And we'll talk a little bit about how to optimize your website, but one quick thing is make sure your phone number is in the upper right corner. That's where people's eyes naturally go. And so have it say schedule an intake and then your phone number. As soon as they want to make an appointment with you, they should be able to know on every single page up in your header. Another acquisition strategy for getting your ideal client and filling up your ideal practice is podcast interviews. Now, if you want local people to fill up your practice, then you want to be on local podcasts. And a lot of people think this is a big waste of time, but every new car has the ability to have podcasts in it right now. And so it's really important to make sure that you're out there, because even if each podcast gets 100 listens, imagine in a year, it's 100 listens per month, that's 1,200 people. If once a year you were asked to speak in front of 1,200 people, you would totally do that. And this is 1 hour of your time that you do a podcast interview. So look for local podcasts that are in your state, in your area. Those backlinks from those websites to your website are going to be really important too. So by backlinks, I mean when someone links from another website that comes to your website. Next, you want to look at press releases. And so every newspaper has an email address that you send press releases to. All those free magazines you see, like the Northern Express or the Business News or the Women's Magazine. We have all sorts of free magazines or cheap magazines in town that will have so-and-so just joined this real estate place and so-and-so just got certified in this. Have professional headshots that you can send with your press releases, pictures of your office, and put it in your calendar once a month to send out those press releases for different things for your practice. And then you'll get a lot of free extra exposure. Next, I want to hit on Facebook Live. So Facebook Live is one of the best, if not the best way that you can be getting your name out there. Right now, how Facebook works is if you post something in your status, a video, just a status update, about 10 to 15% of the people that are connected to you are going to see that status update. Whereas in your Facebook page for your business, only about 5 to 10% are going to see it of people that have liked your page. Otherwise, you have to pay to boost those posts. Now, Facebook wants to take over the live video market. They want to take down Periscope. They want to take down all the other ones by having live video be a central part of how Facebook operates. And so up in your status bar, you'll see Go Live. So you just type in whatever you're going to talk about. So 3 tips to reduce depression in the springtime. And when you go live, you can do it from your computer or your phone. You're just going to talk about those things, and then 100% of the people you're connected to will see that you have been live. And this is really important because I was testing this out for about a month before I started encouraging my consulting clients to do it. And now that they've been doing it and seeing huge success, I'm encouraging everybody else to do it after I've kind of tested it a little bit. Within the first couple weeks of going live every day or so, I had so many people at my daughter's school say, "Oh my gosh, I saw that you were live the other day. That was so great." People that literally never talked to me about my business, within 2 weeks, all of a sudden were like, "Oh my gosh, you go live so often. It's so cool. It's incredible that you're doing this." So Facebook Live is a fabulous way to get your name out there, but it also is a great way for you to be able to just practice talking more. It's really important to be able to articulate what it is you offer. So speaking to that pain, speaking to those things that people vent to is really important. Lastly, there's 2 things that every client asks when they're on your website. First, am I in the right place? Websites, so many times people end up on the wrong website, and so we want to make sure it's apparent and clear that people are in the right place and that you connect with their pain. And so having the words counseling, having the words therapy, having a clear pain and outcome, and having that outcome be through therapy or through counseling, and having it be really important. So when parents are frustrated with their kids' academic performance, through counseling, we come up with a plan to help there be less anxiety and frustration in the house and have more peace and happiness. So then they know, okay, I'm in the right place. Now can this person help me? And that's through talking about your expertise within the context of their pain. That's through having a very clear call to action of a phone number, of describing kind of what types of clients you work with, even on your About page, making it clear who you work with. So I would love to talk with you more. I have tons of resources over at Practice of the Practice. If you are growing your practice and you've got some kind of traction going and you're ready to invest in your practice and you want to do one-on-one consulting, join one of my mastermind groups, or come to one of my conferences, I would love to have you apply for a strategy session. It's totally free to apply. Emily will then talk to you to see kind of the direction you go, give you some tips on goals and resources of what could help you with your goals. And if it's appropriate, she'll have you sit down with me for a 15-minute strategy session to really come up with your next steps. So you can head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/strategy to apply. I would love to chat with you, get to know you, help you have more of your ideal clients to fill your ideal practice. Have an awesome day. Thanks so much for attending this webinar.